Have you ever watched a match so quiet that it starts to feel like the stadium is holding its breath with you? Real Madrid won, Osasuna nil. And somehow, it felt like the longest 97 minutes the Bernabeu has ever sat through without exploding. But here's the thing. It shouldn't have been quiet. This was Trent Alexander-Arnold's league debut. This was Kylian Mbappe's first La Liga match at home, under Xabi Alonso of all people, who now prowls the Real Madrid touchline like an impeccably dressed philosopher king. And still, we sat there, staring at a game that dripped tension but refused to boil over, like someone trying to light a cigarette in a hurricane. So yeah, 1-0. A goal that came from the only man who could possibly make a penalty feel like performance art. Mbappe. A penalty he earned himself, by the way, dragging Cruz into a foul with the kind of clever, cruel turn that made you wonder whether Cruz would ever try to defend again without crying. 51 minutes in, Herrera commits to the dive early, and Mbappe, calm as a glacier, just rolls it the other way. The most inevitable goal you'll see this side of gravity. And yet what makes this game linger isn't the goal. It's the absurd contrast. Madrid had all the ball. Osasuna they had uniforms, they had names printed on the back, but not the ball, not ideas. Not a single shot on target. When your team sheet reads like a witness protection program and your best plan is hope Madrid gets bored, you kind of deserve what's coming. But still, 1-0, just one, despite it all. It started how you might expect, white shirts flooding forward, the crowd roaring like they'd been uncaged all summer, and Mbappe doing Mbappe things within 12 seconds of kickoff. Trent Alexander-Arnold, shiny and bright like a toy unwrapped too early, was whipping in crosses and casually completing 57 passes like he was playing on beginner mode. Militao came back from the abyss of injury looking like he'd spent his rehab in Valhalla. Huijsen, bless him, was apparently told that defenders can shoot too, because he tried his luck from about 5 postcodes away. And every time Madrid built an attack, you got the sense that something ought to happen. Something dramatic, cinematic, a moment to hang the season on, and then the game would stutter, or the shot would loop over. Or Herrera, eternal Sergio Herrera, who keeps turning in performances like a man on a permanent redemption tour, would fling himself across goal like a mythological creature. Osasuna made it ugly. Deliberate, stubborn, irritating ugliness. And for a long time, it worked. Tchouaméni did his best to light the spark, twice. One was a thunderous drive from 30 yards that had Herrera diving in self-defense. The other was a looping header off a corner that just missed tucking inside the far post. And in between those, there were flickers. Güler shot just over. Vinicius looked like he might wake up and do something irresponsible. But every time Madrid got near the box, Osasuna slammed the door and dead-bolted it with a chain made of boredom. Honestly, the most Madrid thing about the first half wasn't even the football. It was the possession. 82.5%. Do you know how hard it is to keep 82.5% of the ball and still only have one shot on target? You could give that much control to a toddler, and they'd at least knock over a lamp. By halftime, the game felt like it had been shrink-wrapped. Osasuna weren't even pretending to attack. They were just out there recycling oxygen. Alonso, visibly annoyed, was doing that thing managers do when they pretend to stretch, but are really trying not to combust. You could hear him too. Yelling at players to move, which, let's be real, is a wild ask when half your midfield is stuck behind a red wall of existential nihilism. But then came the moment. 50 minutes. Mbappe, wide on the right, backed into the byline like a cat playing with a cornered mouse. Cruz comes in like a man who's been given terrible instructions by an unseen force. Mbappe pivots, Cruz bites, and down goes the Frenchman. Penalty. Obvious. Inevitable. Cruel. And what followed was a goal so inevitable it almost didn't need to be kicked. Mbappe walks up, pauses, waits for Herrera to flinch, and just brushes it into the opposite corner, like he's selecting an item from a menu. 1-0, and somehow that was both a reward and a warning. Like Madrid finally ringing the bell, but letting everyone know they weren't in the mood to party. You'd think that would open the game up. You'd be wrong. Osasuna, to their credit, and I'm being generous here, decided to try playing a bit more forward, which in this case meant occasionally crossing the halfway line like they were tourists on a very tight leash. But Madrid never killed it. They never found the second goal. And Alonso looked like a man trying to solve a puzzle where none of the pieces fit. Then came the changes. Trent off to a standing ovation. Fair play, it wasn't spectacular, but it was composed. Carvajal on. Mastantuono, this weird little ghost of River Plate, came on and nearly scored from a ridiculous angle that made everyone pause and think, wait, who is that? Carreras did a decent imitation of a left-back who could be a winger if reality allowed it. And Garcia got elbowed so hard by Bretones in the final moments that the ref had no choice but to flash a red card like he'd been waiting all match to use it. But here's what lingered after the final whistle. This was Real Madrid, at home, with about £400 million worth of footballers on the pitch, and it took a penalty to beat Osasuna. It wasn't boring. It was tense. Tense in that weird, suffocating way that makes you talk to yourself during the match like you're trying to conjure a goal by sheer willpower. Tense in that this should be easy, why isn't this easy kind of way. Tense like an unsent message. And that tension, that pressure cooker flavor, that's Alonso football, at least for now. Because this wasn't Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid, full of comfortable patterns and slow-building authority. This was something younger, angrier, still taking shape. A team trying to wear its new skin without wrinkling it. And you could feel that in the nervy passes, the frustrated glances, the sighs from the crowd when another cross floated just out of reach. And yet, they won. 1-0. Job done. No points dropped. 3 in the bag. Because this is Real Madrid. And even when they play like a symphony missing its final chord, they still leave with the result. And look, maybe it wasn't the grand unveiling some fans wanted. Maybe this wasn't fireworks and thunderbolts. But it was a beginning. For Alonso. For Trent. For Carreras and Huijsen and Mastantuono. A beginning shaped by control, forged in struggle, defined by patience. And at the heart of it, that one flash of sharp, blinding quality from Mbappe. The reason the stadium was sold out. The reason you stayed on the edge of your seat, even when the game felt like molasses. Next up, Real Oviedo away. And if this match was Madrid at their slowest burn, you get the sense we're one good match away from them lighting the fuse. Now let's talk about the players. Because while the scoreline reads 1-0, the performances were anything but one note. Let's start with the obvious one. Kylian Mbappe. This wasn't just a performance, it was a flex. Mbappe was the gravity of the match, the center of the pull. Every time he got the ball, Osasuna's defensive line reshaped itself like a group of schoolchildren being told to line up straight. He drifted left, darted right, picked his moments, waited, and then pounced. That penalty? That was more than just a goal. That was a message. It said, you can defend all you like, but I only need 1 second, 1 turn, 1 breath to undo all of it. And what's even more annoying, and I say that with affection, is how casually he does it. No fire, no drama, just an exhale and a rolled ball into the corner. Herrera dives, Madrid wins, Mbappe jogs back like he's just turned off a light switch. 6 shots, 10 touches in the box, 7 dribbles, and more duels won than some midfielders manage in a month. He was the engine and the elegance. If this was him at 70%, then God help La Liga when he decides to actually break a sweat. Vinicius Jr., though? Strange night. Like a Ferrari stuck in traffic. You could see the torque, the heat, the threat, but he was never quite let loose. 1 shot, 1 cutback, a few moments where the dribble almost came off. He had the right idea, but kept running into red shirts, or into his own indecision. It's almost like having Mbappe on the pitch forces Vinicius to recalibrate who he is, alpha or support act. And until he answers that question, we're going to get these shadow performances full of movement, light on bite. Now on to the midfield, where things were complicated. Aurélien Tchouaméni was the best version of a brick wall wearing ballet shoes. He sat deep, took the ball under pressure like it was no big deal, and sprayed passes like a very polite machine gun. Twice he tried to score from 30 yards, and you can't even be mad. Both efforts were venomous, targeted, full of intent. If one of those had gone in, he'd have walked off the pitch with a cigar. He didn't, but he still walked off like a man in control. Federico Valverde. Now here's where it gets messy. He was everywhere and nowhere. Constant motion, endlessly available, but his touch, just a bit off. His weight of pass, half a second slow. His instincts, muted. And for a player like him, a man made of chaos and long-distance gallops, that's a problem. He looked like someone trying to remember their lines in a play they've done 100 times, but not recently. Not bad, not brilliant, just trying. And then there was Arda Güler, that lovely slippery little playmaker with a haircut that says child genius and a playing style that whispers, trust me. He moved like he had time to think. You don't teach that, that's just who he is. But this wasn't his game. Osasuna weren't leaving pockets of space, they were burying them. And Güler, for all his intent, never quite found the rhythm. A few flashes, a few hopeful shots, but he felt peripheral, like someone watching a parade they should be leading. Now let's talk about the backline, starting with Trent Alexander-Arnold. His La Liga debut, Bernabeu debut, Real Madrid debut, and he was fine. Not amazing, not messy. Just very Real Madrid-ish, actually. Calm, precise, a little cautious. He created one chance, completed nearly every pass, and then walked off to a standing ovation like a man who just passed an audition without even knowing the script. He didn't really defend, because Osasuna never asked him to, but he passed like a metronome. No panic, no nerves. Just Trent doing Trent things, but with subtitles in Spanish now. On the other flank, Alvaro Carreras, bless his overachieving heart, looked like a man trying to prove he belonged. And maybe he does. He was aggressive, took shots, carried the ball, tracked back like his job depended on it, which it probably does. If Trent was playing smooth jazz, Carreras was banging pots and pans, loud, earnest, effective. And when he linked up with Güler or Mastantuono on the left, you got glimpses of something that could grow into danger. Not now, but soon. And then there's Dean Huijsen, making his La Liga debut like he's been here for years. The kid took a shot from 35 yards just to introduce himself to the Spanish top flight. And you know what? I respect that. The defending, not flashy, but secure. His passing, ambitious. He played like a man who's not afraid to get it wrong if it means getting it right eventually. That's the kind of energy Madrid needs from their younger defenders. Swagger without arrogance. Eder Militao, though. My word. He's been out with a knee injury and came back looking like the ghost of old Madrid center backs. Calm. Dominant. Completely uninterested in Osasuna's little forays forward. You could see him judging distances like a sniper. Budimir tried, bless him, but he looked like a man playing hide-and-seek with someone holding a drone. Militao is still Real Madrid's best defender by a mile, and tonight was the calm before whatever storm he's planning for later this season. And in goal, Thibaut Courtois didn't break a sweat. He might as well have been sipping iced tea behind the goal. 2 shots faced, 0 on target, 97 minutes of boredom. But here's the thing about Courtois. He doesn't get bored. He just waits, watches. And when someone finally tests him, probably in 2 months, he'll be ready. That's his thing. Stillness with fangs. As for the subs, let's give a little spotlight to Franco Mastantuono. 17 years old, walks into the Bernabeu like he's been doing this since preschool. He had 1 shot from a ridiculous angle that forced a save and nearly caused a riot. His touches were clever, his movement smart. There's something sparkly about him. Not finished, not polished, but definitely alive. Like you're watching the start of something you won't be able to look away from. Gonzalo Garcia came on late, took an elbow, got someone sent off, didn't say much but made Osasuna angry, which, frankly, is a service to the sport. Dani Ceballos came on, jogged around, passed the ball sideways. No complaints, but no fireworks either. And what do we say about Osasuna? I mean, they were brave, or stubborn, or maybe both. Their game plan was, don't concede until you accidentally do. Herrera kept them in it. Cruz, well, gave it away. Bretones got sent off for being cranky at the wrong time. Budimir didn't touch the ball in any way that mattered. And their midfield, Toro, Rosier, Garcia, looked like they were trying to read a book underwater. This wasn't a night for them to thrive. It was a night for them to survive. And even then, barely. This was Madrid's night. Just not a loud one, not a blowout, not a parade, but something quieter. More simmer than sizzle. And that simmer? It matters, because if this is Madrid still stretching, still waking up, still finding their shape under Xabi Alonso, then what happens when they actually click? We'll find out soon. This has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.